Welcome to Burning Questions. My name's Alec. I'm the technical manager at Quellfire, joined once again with Craig. In this episode, it comes out for the 7-year anniversary of Grenfell. So we wanted just to talk a little bit about what's changed in the industry since that time. You know, obviously, even though it's 7 years, it's still firmly in a lot of people's memories. Those events are still tragic, and we're still awaiting the aftermath of that and how the industry is going to change. But we thought we could tie this in at the same time with the competency series that we have had. So we just want to do a summary of that and just see if there's any positive and what changes are happening in the industry moving forward. So yeah, Craig, thanks for joining me again on the show. So
a pleasure.
I suppose the first thing is, obviously we both took part in the competency series with our with different individuals. So I suppose the first thing is just sort of like summarize what the general feeling of those episodes was. So what was your take from it, from the guests that you spoke to, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some, very full and very engaging conversations for sure. But there has been some overarching themes, and I guess, it's always helpful to start by thinking, what is competency?
Yeah.
So we talk about competency being knowledge and skills and behaviour. And I would say, I would put the case forward that probably one of the most important aspects of that is the behaviour.
100%.
And that's something that's definitely shone through, certainly with our guests. They are individuals who are striving to make a difference, not settling for what they've done in the past. They've got that behaviour, they've got that attitude to make positive changes, which is really encouraging to see. And we have spoken with people from right across the industry. So we've had dry lining consultants, we've had fire engineers, we've had main contractors, we've had fire stoppers. Who else have we had?
Architects.
What is that? Architects.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
We covered the whole spectrum. So yeah, no, it's I totally agree. The behaviours thing, I think, was the sentiment of everyone. You can have knowledge, you can have skills, but I mean, people say it's a cultural change, but I think it is a attitude and behaviour change that needs to happen. And I think that was quite clear in everyone's statements. It didn't really matter where they sort of fit into the chain, if they were the architect or they were the installer, which is obviously a lot further down the line. It was, how do we change? And I liked your point there that the guests we had were individuals that, like Quellfire, I feel, are trying to, we're not taking a seat back and waiting for others to try and help push the industry forward. We're all trying to make that positive impact. Okay, all in our own little way, but hopefully that will, a snowball turns into a big boulder, etc., going down, that we actually start to see some real changes. And I think we have. I think, especially from Quellfire's perspective, I think we've impacted quite a few people. Definitely those individuals. That's why we wanted them to share their thoughts and their things, because they see it from other avenues and they see how we've supported them and how they've also supported us in that journey forward. So yeah, and it was a good series, and I think everyone had their own views, but I think the underlying theme was the same throughout, which was good. It was good to see.
So I think history has probably shown that it often takes a tragedy to cause a change, which is, of course, a tragedy in itself. But that is a positive change. We have to look at the positive changes that have occurred. And of course, we've had the introduction of the Building Safety Act.
Yes.
So from your experience and knowledge from the front line, if you like, of dealing with the industry, what positive changes have we seen from that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I obviously it's probably still quite a controversial topic for a lot of people out there. The construction industry as a whole can be quite subdivided with the way people are, but I feel it's been quite a positive impact. I don't think it's completely right, and I don't even think the BSR or even the government know that the Building Safety Act is 100% perfect. It's a foundation for something that we work on, but the positive underlining of the theme was we've had these tragedies, we don't want it to happen again, and Grenfell was avoidable. It was quite clear that it was, and even in the last Hackett report type thing, and the ones that mention is, it wasn't even down to poor workmanship, it was a poor design. So I think the big positive change was the emphasis on design and then build.
Yep.
From our experience, especially as we deal with service penetrations, trying to work out solutions after you start running services is makes things so much harder, to the point where sometimes it's impossible, because it's just not practical to do it. So even though a lot of the design and build is aimed at the moment at high-rise buildings, I think the positive change that would hopefully filter down to all buildings, that people start to realise and start to see the benefits. And the big positive change is that, okay, if we design and then we build, we get it right first time. So that was one big change. And I think obviously competency, going back to our theme, there's a big emphasis on, like other industries like gas and electric and all that, is that people now need to start proving that they are competent in what they do. So, okay, when we spoke to the fire engineers, you may be a fire engineer, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily a fire engineer that covers all aspects. I don't know anyone in the industry, including myself, even though I remember a lot of things, that knows absolutely everything. We don't. Every day's a school day, everyone knows. So they could be an expert in structural engineering, which a lot of fire engineers are. But when you start talking to them about service penetrations, a lot of them, they would never have had any experience. So it's finding that person. It's the same with a risk assessor, which we didn't get a chance to talk to it there. And obviously they're having a lot of changes in their side of things. Is, external walls are different from internal walls, and there's levels. And I think people now need to start working out what they're capable of. An architect on Grenfell, I think, had never done high-rise buildings. So I think that's a positive change, where it's emphasising that you need to prove that you're capable of doing it. And hopefully that in case changes the industry as well.
I think, on that point about fire engineers, as you say, not understanding every aspect. I think we've probably seen that, certainly as an industry sector of service penetration sealing. There's been a historic, well, we'll just leave that up to the fire stoppers.
Yes.
People have been a little bit more conscious historically of perhaps structural, but the small penetrations, well, we'll just leave it to a fire stopper. Clearly there has been a shift towards main contractors and designers taking more responsibility for what is being proposed, and I think that is a really positive change. And at the end of the day, they're a design and build contractor. If they might use subcontractors to do the work, but they still carry that design responsibility. So I think that is a very positive change, is that there is a change of mindset, a change of, wanting to take responsibility for the smaller details, what were deemed as smaller details. And also, not being just reliant on saying, well, we use competent contractors or competent designers. It's that doing their own due diligence.
100%. And we are seeing that, I think, from the amount of people that we work with. And I joke that I have a scale of main contractors, from good to bad, which can't share, trade secret. But there are ones that have worked for us, and actually have worked with us even before, certain levels of the Safety Act have come in. They knew what was coming. They've been proactive, like Quellfire have, and which, again, like going back to the sort of the Hackett reports, they've come out, is they need individuals to start taking the lead. The industry needs to show us how it's done, and the regulations will try and fall in line. There's a baseline, but we need to now go, okay, this is the level we can work at competently. And the ones that are working with us and have worked for us for a while and have followed this scheme and understand, I think they're seeing positive changes, not only from the first thing is it's life safety, so they're more confident that their building is safe, but I've seen positive changes from timescales and budgets. And I know people think the gateway system is going to be longer, but I think once that process works out, I think you're going to see a much different way of building. The fact that it will fly through if you do it right, and you won't have any of the recourse of going back and fixing all your buildings, etc. as well.
An expression I use typically when I'm engaging with main contractors is, the need to move everything left. I agree with you. I think there is going to be this perhaps a window where everything's getting checked, but once it's checked, it will allow you to progress at pace. So it's the right way of doing it, and we're already seeing those positive changes. Certainly from conversations with people I'm having, they are proving the benefit of paying more attention to design up front, and then it is progressing the build, and of course reducing the amount of rework, non-conformities, and even reducing the amount of blood pressure, high blood pressure, should I say?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it is all good. And I guess you at the front line of dealing with people.
Yeah,
I know we're not seeing the full effect of the Building Safety Act yet, and
No, we're working on it. I mean, obviously at the moment, I know, especially for high-rise buildings, no new build has gone through the application of Gateway 2 yet because it only just came into force. However, we're working on projects ourselves now that we know are going to be doing it, and they're very confident in the way that they're pushing that forward. So it'll be good to see. Probably this time next year, you would have seen a large amount of projects going through at that stage. Obviously, I think people are probably a bit nervous the first time. The industry is kind of, and again, I think it's a lot of people, and that's my big problem, is they're waiting for others. So luckily, we're working with those leaders, I'd say, in the industry to go, okay, let's put our neck on that guillotine and let's go for it, and let's do it the right way. And I think that's good. I think there is a lot of positivity coming out, and hopefully people are starting to see the difference, because we don't want to have another incident like we had back then, moving forward, and hopefully that won't happen. So
yeah, no, that's good. So if we move on from the kind of the subject of legislation change, perhaps we could discuss about the changes of approach that people are taking. Some of the obviously we've mentioned early engagement, and huge champions of early engagement. What other practices are we seeing?
The thing I think's been really positive is the fact that, though it is actually quite frustrating for me because I didn't realise how many I was going to get, is people are asking questions. So a lot, like you going back to the due diligence thing, I think architects, designers aren't just accepting a manufacturer's
product data sheet,
or we did this the other way. I've been in the industry 20 years. There's all the things now. It's okay, I've heard what you said. Show me how you can back that up. Basically, anything you now state, which is again the positivity with the CCPI, the construction product thing, is you can say something, but you got to back it up. So that's been good. So from that, though, obviously, I didn't realise how many questions there were going to be, which is good. We want to obviously help people, especially those proactively wanting to learn. But then it's actually positively helped us shape how our R&D teams work. So we've taken that feedback and gone, okay, there's certain areas that you would have taken for granted would have had a tested solution that they haven't. So we've gone, it's not a quick process, obviously, but that's helped us as well from a positive thing to, okay, what do our customers need? What does the industry want? So yeah, that sort of change where people are having the discussions, because it ties back to early engagement, but I feel that everyone now sort of understands their role, that those fire stoppers that were before seemed as fire engineers for a lot of main contractors are now sort of pushing back and, look, this isn't my responsibility. Engage the manufacturers, okay, and we start to see that trend. So yeah, I think that's...
If I can relate to that, I had a phone call this morning with a gentleman. He phoned in. He's been installing bat and mastic for years, by his own admission. And yeah, he reached out and he said, look, I've been watching all your YouTube series and been to a couple of exhibitions and seen who you are. And he said, whilst we're still just installing products, we need more than that. He said, we need education.
Yeah.
We need to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And I thought, okay, I know what you've been listening to, because that's very much a Quellfire thing, is, you must understand why as well as what. But I thought it was really refreshing. He's quite happy with his current supplier of products, and he's got his installers, and they've all been on a one-day course. And he's now saying, look, that's not enough. No, we're responsible for, I think it was over 30,000 properties, and we're going in and we're checking them and we're putting right, etc. And historically, we would have just put batten sealants in there, but we need to be making sure that we are installing the correct thing. So, really positive change, and kudos to him for if you like, breaking that mold.
Back to the behaviours thing there.
Yeah. Again, I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was saying, look, I'm not going to tell you who I'm working for. He said, but I'm just an installer. I just install what my manager tells me to do, but I'm not sure he actually knows that we're installing the right details. I'm asking and I think that's what we're seeing is really these really positive changes where people are saying, look, we've got to learn, we've got to do things different. They are changing the way they've done things, and there's this real appetite for education and training, which probably leads us on to another point, really. The importance of education, the importance of manufacturer-specific training, not only for the installers, but also for the designer team as well.
Yeah.
So again, just to kind of relate it to another experience earlier this week, I had a meeting with an architect who invited along the MEP consultant, and it was a really great interactive session where we were just sharing ideas, thrashing out, and certainly that sort of thing was never happening 7 years, 10 years, or even 3 years ago, quite honestly. So yeah, I think I affectionately call you Mr. CPD, Alec.
Yeah.
You like a bit of CPD.
Yeah,
there's plenty to tune into, isn't there?
Yeah, there isn't enough. For those that think you can do a one-day course and that's enough, then you're barking up the wrong tree, in my opinion, because I've not stopped learning since I've been in the industry. But I think tying into what you said, actually, one of the other positive things, education is one, but I think collaboration is another one. And competency gets thrown around a lot, and I know people are kind of getting sick of that word. So collaboration is one I want to try and push a bit more. But with the MEP side of things, tying back to education there with the collaboration, even the last few years, I've learnt stuff that our fire stopping affects their stuff from an MEP gas pipes. There's certain things there's reasons why they need to be sleeved. So, and it's trying to do the blend of what works for fire stopping, but what works from MEPs, because, just putting foil face rock fibre around cables and cable trays to get that EI fire rating has a detrimental effect on the performance of those cables, that the point that they might not work. So then there's no point in that service penetration being there, etc. So that collaboration is also education, because you can't be blinkered, like the horses type thing. You've got to see the bigger picture. We are one small cog in the big machine, and that's why early engagement, getting the wall manufacturer in, the MEPs, the fire stopping, the ventilation, everyone in that's got an impact might have something that they have to throw into the pot. And that's where the principal designer goes, okay, takes all that information, looks at it and goes, this is what we've put together. Does everyone feel happy that it meets all the requirements that everyone has? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, looking at it holistically.
Yeah. And that ties back into education, because obviously the architect, like Hassan, who came to do the competency thing, he's took a vast interest into the education. He talks about that. He doesn't necessarily need to as much. He does need to, but obviously it was never enforced. I think they spend half a day in there as an architect on their training in degree about fire, but he's realised how important it was. They have dedicated CPDs for their teams. They invite guests and stuff like that. And I think that side of thing, again, shows the behaviour of, let's not sit and wait for people to tell us that we've got to do a CPD. And I think even talking about CPDs the way they are now, I'm seeing more and more happen at times like 10 o'clock to 11 or in the afternoon, or a lot of the ones I do for the IFE are in the evening. So that's actually in my own time, which shows that you're committed to it, rather than, I want a BLT sandwich when I watch this sort of thing. So that's not to discredit lunchtime things, but I think there has been a real change.
There has. I think it's well known. I think that CPD was always a lunchtime thing. It was even called lunch and learn. Yeah. And in fact it was almost deemed as a way of bribing people to come along to the session, was to say, well, there'll be free sandwiches.
Little crumbs.
So that's definitely changed, as you say. People are wanting CPDs at all times of the day, and those that do have them at lunchtime. I actually did one recently, which was called a lunch and learn, and it very clearly said under the heading that you are not expected to do this during your lunch break time.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone needs a break.
Yeah.
Mental health is also an important consideration. So we might still be using those phrases, but the concept of learning
is more emphasised now.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is actually you're there to learn.
And
such.
yes, it's not just meeting those minimum requirements of so many hours a year. It's a genuine, we are seeing a lot of architects' practices just have a rolling program. Every single week they have a CPD.
Yeah.
Some of them that we're reaching out to and saying, are you interested in one? They say, well, yes, but we're fully booked until September.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That is
Well, I suppose
continuous learning, continuous professional development.
I mean, the online one that we do one every month online, and it's been the same subject for a number of years.
Couple of years, yeah.
But it still continuously has large numbers every time. And obviously you'll get the people that come back every year, but people still learn or refresh. So yeah, there is an appetite, and I think that's a positive, the education and the collaboration between. Yeah. And I think that's, and I've said it at a few trade events that I've been to, is the fact that one of the things I liked about the prospect of the PFKG, which I think was another positive that came out, is the main
Passive Fire Knowledge Group. For
yes, was the fact that they realised that they needed to get to a wider audience, because it isn't just, we've said it before, all the fire people get to around, fire, and all the MEPs get to, MEP stuff. And the whole reason for that was to look at the wider construction industry, get the architects involved, get everyone involved, get everyone to the table and knock out these problems. It's been going for a little while, but that I thought has been another positive aspect, that again they took the initiative, got that group off the ground, and again it goes back to that leading from the front, which some are doing, and I feel we've been a big part of a lot of people's push on that as well, which has been good.
Yeah, I guess you're really referring to the whole concept of ethics. Competency, yes, but also ethics, which links directly into your behaviours, wanting to do the right thing. And I think that was one of the core principles of that group, wasn't it? Was to share knowledge at an industry level and to improve best practice across the whole sector. So, it's going to be interesting times ahead to see how that progresses.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But already there are some good changes, aren't there?
Yeah. Like I said, the positivity is starting to ramp up a little bit. I think as we were getting closer to the gateways being introduced, especially Gateway 2, there was a lot of panic. There's a lot of thing. Obviously, there is still a lot of work to do. I don't think anyone's championed that it's been 100% success. But even at the BSR event, the Building Safety Regulator event that I went to, they said that it's off the ground now. We've got the starting blocks, but that's, I use the word foundation a lot, but that's what they're doing. They've laid down the foundations. We now need to start adding those pillars and, add the pillars, add the supports and stuff like that. And eventually we'll build something that hopefully everyone's proud of and we can all stick to moving forward. So I think
that's good. So I guess we've touched on a couple of points here, all relating back to this concept of competency. One is obviously we've had a tragedy, which tragedies instigate change. Yeah. We've had introduction of new legislation, and we've had ethics and behaviour changes amongst all the relevant industry sectors: architects, consultants, contractors, specialist installers. So the cumulative effect of all these things is really positive, isn't it? I wonder if we could draw on an example of where we've been involved in a project. Probably should have done some homework before we sat down.
I can actually, I've got a quite good one, and we've done actually quite an article on this as well. And again, this is again showing a bit of proactiveness, not necessarily, again, the gateways weren't involved yet, but we worked with the main contractor for a big hospital project. It was a bit of it was a new build, but obviously the hospital was already there, so it's an add-on, and it was for a cancer ward, and it kind of shows how the gateways could have worked. Obviously they didn't submit any approval or anything, but their initial thing was this is going to be quite complex. Actually, they did the usual thing you said. They originally went to the fire stopping installer and went, we need help with these fire stopping aspects, and credit to them. And in fact, we can name names. So the main contractor was Kier, because you can read this article on our case studies. Yep. They went to Optimum Drywall and went, help us with the service penetration details, etc. And they quite up front went, look, this isn't our area. We are the installers. You're supposed to design it and teach us. However, we work very well with Quellfire. Let's have a Teams meeting, get the ball rolling and start the conversation. So we had the initial conversation very early on for the project. We got all the information and quite quickly we learned some fundamental errors straight away. So the project was using a lot of single skin plasterboard walls, which from our aspect was fine. We had service penetration details for most things. There was a couple of things that we didn't, that I'll touch on in a sec, but the big problem at the time was the damper choice that they selected, which was going to be used in that project, didn't. So
wasn't compatible with that wall system.
At that time, yeah. I think it's changed now from what they've done, but at the time they hadn't. But luckily they're at the stage that they were in a position to, well, is it easier just to have double skin? Let's do that. So they did that. So the areas where that penetration went through was going. Another thing was they had pneumatic pipes. And at the time, we predominantly have been doing residential projects, not hospitals.
Never heard of pneumatic pipes.
I'll be honest, I hadn't. So we researched it, and it is a from the. If I put one out now, you'd say that's a plastic pipe. It is a plastic pipe. However, with the pneumatic pipes, they have very thin walls. So, for example, the 110 is actually only 2.3 mil thick, and that might not sound a lot, but compared to other test evidence, it won't. You couldn't use standard pipe data for it, and the 160 was the same. So again, we're at the early stage that we were able to get samples from the company, put it into a fire test, and by the time that the project was going to go live, we had a tested solution moving forward. So again, without that early conversation, and we're talking 12 months before the project was going to get started because it had to go through the NHS process, that we were able to do that, and it worked well. The spacings were all done. The MEP were on the conversation, so they understood the recommended spacings that we advise. And then, luckily, at the time, the fire stopper was also the dry liner, so they understood the walls, etc. But yeah, that project was highly successful. I think Kier have had awards from it. Like I said, we've done a very good case study, but that showed then the willingness that everyone got together. And like I said, to credit to the fire stopper,
what they didn't know.
Yep, and we got it. And they then now, that design team, again, it was all new to them, but they have now moved on to a second hospital, again in the southwest, actually from my hometown of Taunton. But they're taking the same principles they learnt there, realised it worked. Okay, it was new. It probably might have seemed a bit slower, but when they actually got to that build stage, because everyone had a plan, they finished on time, they finished on budget, I believe, and from what they say, obviously I haven't seen the calculations
Final
or anything,
account.
but they were so happy with it that they've now taken the same principle to another project, and I believe they'll do it. The design team are over the moon and moving forward, and we've seen that with other main contractors that it started off a bit slow, but
once they
got
it
it,
works, they refine the process. Yeah. So I've been saying this with a number of main contractors recently, is that it is a change, but it's a very positive change, and ultimately can make you go faster.
Yes.
Not only when you get on site with the build, but also when you come to the next project. Again, I can relate to that. I had a meeting last week, I think it was, with a contractor, and literally their opening remark in the meeting was, "You and the fire stopper have worked very well together on a project. We've now got another student accommodation down the road. We want to replicate what we did and make it work equally as good here." And so it works. So yeah, it's all exciting stuff. What are we going to do to increase competency going forward, Alec?
Obviously, the educational side of things was big important. We try our best. I mean, it's hard because we're only a small aspect. I mean, the main focus is service penetrations and linear gaps, even though we get asked all sorts, and I'll happily help as much as I can.
And of course, I always say, that the principles that we are shouting about can be applied to every aspect,
and should be applied,
and should be applied, exactly. And then I guess that's the whole point, really. Is it's not just about service penetration skills; it's about the whole building safety.
Definitely a whole thing. But I think one of the things, and I know you've been heavily working on this aspect, is one of the problems I had with the main contractors, I suppose, is the fact that they are national, and they because there wasn't really a set process. Everyone has their own way of doing things, whereas the ones that have now started to embrace this early engagement, all that, and start to put into processes, or I mean, I couldn't even tell you some of the projects that they're north, south, east, west. You know, they're all starting to, because they're all starting to follow the same plan and thing. It works. So from a higher up level, you've got a bit more control of what's happening, I suppose, below you as well, which is a positive, that everyone is singing off the same song sheet. You know, they're working towards the same process and measure. And especially as, although we've talked about legislation, I mean, the Building Safety Act typically is only for England and Wales. Scotland have some slightly different rules, and Ireland's the same. But what we push, like you said, translate to everywhere. If you do it the way that we know works, which is
principles,
principles, and that it's a safe building.
I think it comes back to your point earlier about collaboration.
Yeah,
so yes, you might be a diversely located enterprise with multiple offices and multiple people, but talk to your colleagues.
Yeah.
What's working? And share that best practice. Again, competency, knowing what you don't know. So reach out to other people that do know, and I think that is absolutely critical, and it's a really positive sign we are seeing.
Yeah, I mean, take advantage of what's available, because a lot of people are giving their time for free. Like our CPDs are free. For example, London Build, fire safety events, those type of events. Before, it might have just been, we used to see quite, especially like London Build, because we're normally right by the stages. You'd see some of those events, people just walking around for free pens, I suppose, back in the day. But now, when you see the actual,
you still get them.
Yeah, you do. But you'll see that when there's a presentation on a certain topic of fire, there's no seats for it. Like, people are stood around, and it's actually quite loud, and etc. So, if you're an architect or someone like that, you might think, oh, fire's not myself. Go to these things like London Build. Go to sort of like we do the fire safety event, which is things like that. Use these free CPDs. If people are willing to give their free time, take advantage of that, because obviously there are other measures. There's courses, degrees, and stuff like that, and take advantage of them as well. But not everyone can afford type things, especially with obviously I suppose you've got the cost of living crisis, etc. So but there are people out there willing to share what they've got, collaborate with them and stuff like that. And I think, because we wanted to share a lot more positivity things here, I think what main contractors, what we try and do, everyone, is let's start sharing those positive things, because I think we've shown that case that we've done quite a few case studies now, recent stuff, to show, just to give people that sort of hope that we've got this new legislation, it does seem hard, but look at these, they are doing it. What's the positive? The white paper that we produce with the collaboration from people shows the benefits and the highlights. So, and if you haven't downloaded it, go to our website and download that. It's a very useful tool to sort of summarize what we're talking about here as well. So use that. That there's, we're getting better. Every year it gets better. It's a upward battle, but eventually we're going to get to the top, and then it's a nice downhill slide. So.
Good. I reckon we're both running out of steam, Alec.
Yeah.
So at this point, do we take the opportunity to thank all our viewers and listeners? It's been an excellent series, and once again, thanks to all those that participated in the discussions on competency. I don't think we'll ever all say we've got to a stage where we are fully competent in everything, but keep striving for excellence, understand what you don't know, collaboration, and all these other good things we've talked about today.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you for listening.
Thank you.